My name is Nick Russell. I am the Vice President of Operations at Watch Duty.
And how did you get involved with this particular app that suddenly everyone seems to know about and is using and is well, literally saving lives?
Yeah, my story is a little bit colorful. So I don't come from a fire background. I spent the last 10 years of my life managing the largest organic dairy farm in Northern California. And my last year working there, I volunteered simultaneously at Watch Duty, starting as a contributor, becoming a reporter, and then eventually building and deploying our Echo radio devices that are now scattered throughout the West.
What is an echo device?
Yeah, great question. So our Echo radio devices are a force multiplier for us. What they do is they monitor hundreds of first responder radio frequencies
Yeah.
simultaneously, and then they send us alerts of potential wildland fire dispatches in our
Okay.
internal communication system, Slack. And then it sends us all the audio from that in 1 minute snippets with the dead air removed and then transcribes that into text. So that's how we're able to react so quickly of new wildfire ignitions.
And maybe this is a good place to zoom out about this whole situation because, I downloaded the app 5 days ago. It's the first I'd ever heard of it. I log in, incredibly clean interface. I'm getting a lot of information about the size of fires, where they are, wind directions, wind speed. This is a very big question, but how is this thing working?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I think it's probably best to zoom all the way out and kind of
Yeah.
talk about how it was conceptualized
Mm.
and how we are got to where we are today. So, our co-founder and CEO John Clark Mills had a very rich history in the tech industry. He had built several software companies and sold those, and so after the last one, he moved to a rural area in northern Sonoma County, completely off the grid, making his own power. And about 6 months after moving in there, he had encountered several experiences with wildfire helicopters flying over his area with with buckets, and he was trying to figure out what was going on. And so he, sometimes was able to piecemeal the information together, but it was always challenging. And then finally, the final straw was he was evacuated due to the Wallbridge fire, which devastated
Yeah.
much of western Sonoma County. And so when he got to a safe area, he started looking and trying to figure out where the fire was, where it had started, which areas were threatened,
Mm.
resources for evacuees. And he was really coming up short. It took him a long time. He eventually visited 5 different social media pages and local government pages and was able to put a small piece of the story together. And he stopped and said to himself, man, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so he spent the rest of that year riding around on fire engines, learning more about wildland response and suppression, took some classes on wildland firefighting that year. And in August of 2021, Watch Duty was born and launched to the original 3 counties in Northern California, Sonoma Lake and Napa County. That next June, we launched to the entire state of California. We finished that season covering many wildfires throughout the state, unfortunately, and continue to grow our user base. The next year, we expanded to 11 Western states. And then this year, we've now expanded to cover a total of 22 states and 1,476 counties. And so the original intention for Watch Duty was to solve the problem that John was experiencing and get all this pertinent information into one place and then have a delivery platform that wasn't clogged up with the nonsense on social media of direct energy weapons and space lasers, just clear, concise, actionable information so that folks could make a plan for what their next step was. And so I think that's really what's made it grown and popularity. And to your point, it's just so easy to use. And because we're a nonprofit and we're not focused on the money, we don't want your name and we don't want your email address because we're not going to go back and bother you with marketing. So if you noticed when you download the app, you weren't asked any of those things. It was
Yeah.
simply which county do you want alerts for? And then once you've selected that, you start getting those. And so the magic behind all this is the people, right?
Right.
We've built some incredible data aggregation systems that all come into our internal communication system, Slack, as
Mm.
signals. And then our dedicated team of over 200 volunteers and 12 paid support staff, which are predominantly made up of active and retired firefighters, dispatchers, first
Yeah.
responders, and radio enthusiasts, validate those signals. And what they're doing is trying to determine if this signal is in fact an ignition of a wildfire. And if it is, they start posting that information in Watch Duty, starting by not sending alerts to anybody, but just putting the story together.
Yeah.
Because our goal is to tell a storyline from the start of ignition until the threat passes or the last engine leaves. And we do that much like sports reporting, where we're giving you that play-by-play.
That's an interesting way to think about it, and you're completely right. As someone watching the app, you are getting the backstory, so it's not suddenly a shock when there's an evacuation order. You know exactly how that fire is spread and where that information is coming from.
That's right. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
goal. You need the context, you need the granular information. And what I always like to tell people is where I'm at, I need to know when the fire's 5 miles away. I have livestock to move, I have
Yeah.
pets, I have children. My neighbor, on the other hand, doesn't care until the fire is a mile away. And so that rings true throughout all of our communities.
Yeah.
Everybody's emergency is different. And so saying that here's the cookie cutter plan that's going to get you out of harm's way when the time arises doesn't always work, right? Giving
Yeah.
people that context, now they can take their own actions. Maybe they start a rooftop sprinkler system. Maybe they're opening gates for their horses. Maybe they're gathering their pets and going to a loved one's house. And so by giving them that, I think we give people that advantage and we give them those extra few minutes they need to gather documents.
This is a very naive question from someone that's new to California and new to the United States, but what has made these Californian fires so big, so quick, and bigger in Los Angeles than they have ever been before? Is it purely those wind speeds matched with the heat and the fact these fires have started somehow in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, speaking to this situation specifically, I think it's really just a combination of perfect storm of events and taking forest and land management completely out of it. I just don't think that has a large effect when you have hurricane force winds
Yeah.
stacked on 9 months of little to no rain, and then you have an offshore wind event that is bringing that dry air from inland and blowing it towards the coast.
Yeah.
And so I think it's fair to say I have rarely, if ever, seen these kind of speeds sustained for this period of time.
Obviously, Watch Duty is in the press a lot at the moment. People are talking about it. Is this the busiest the app has been? It might be an unusual question, but is this like a particularly busy time for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, this is certainly the busiest we've ever been in January, and that it really is unfortunate. But
Yeah.
the growth that we experienced over the past 5 days has certainly been unprecedented. And we added 2 million additional users to our user base and covering 220 million push notifications we sent. And at the peak, I'm going to call it the peak of the event for our communities, and that was
Yeah.
when they received an erroneous wireless emergency alert to the entire county.
I
We
got it.
spiked to yeah, we spiked up to over 3 million users a minute. So a very, very high number. We saw some request spikes of 100,000 people per second. So you're starting to pass people like Amazon on Prime Day at that point. So
Yeah.
certainly never anything that we thought we'd experience. But I guess the one thing I can smile about as we go through these events is we watched many other technology systems fall down and not work because of these traffic loads. And Watch Duty from the start of the event to today has had 0% downtime. And it's a testament to our engineering team. They stayed up all night long in several instances, scaling the system to meet the demand. And I think it really just speaks to the labor of love of this team.
Why do you think there was such a spike this particular time? Because your app has been around for a long time. Is it the fact that there's a lot of people in Los Angeles and it was affecting people in Los Angeles? Was it some social media trend? I've never seen such a big sudden uptake on an app like this.
Yeah, I think it was the wildland urban interface, which became the urban interface story that really
Yep.
gathered so many people's attention. I can't think of a recallable moment outside of Watch
Mm,
Duty history where 10,000 plus homes were lost in multiple fires. And
mm,
so um, I
yeah.
think that's a big reason for the growth. But then the other side of it is all our growth has always been 100% organic. We don't spend money on marketing. It's always people
Yeah.
on X or Facebook saying, "Hey, you got to download the Watch Duty app." And so
Mm,
I think we've done the right thing for so long, and our user base was certainly large before. It was about 3 million people. And so there was many people in those initial hours from Sacramento, from Oregon, with loved ones in the Los Angeles area, and they started saying, "Hey, use Watch Duty. That's what we
yeah.
use here. We
Mm,
experience fires 5, 10 times a year. That's what we use."
mm,
And then as soon as people started seeing like, "Oh, this isn't just a dot on a map. This is contextual. You're showing
yeah.
evacuation zones. You're showing surface winds. You're showing these red flags that could
Mm,
elevate the fire spread."
mm.
And everything in one place, and then people just magnetize to it.
Amazing. And just finally, are there any particular stories that you've heard from users of the app over this time, or even, something that might have been on social media that you've kind of gone, oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was actually reading through support tickets the other night, just trying to kind of ground myself back in the work we're doing because
Yeah.
it's easy to get a bit clouded. And there's certainly two stories that ring out, and they're on opposite ends of the spectrum. The
Mm,
first one comes from one of our users in the Northern California area, and he
mm,
saw these fires developing at, shortly after 10 a.m., the Palisades fire, and he reached out to his mother and father in the Malibu area who were unaware that a fire had begun. They were unaware that evacuations were underway, and he was able to get them 30 minutes of lead time. Now, they
cool.
unfortunately lost their home,
Mm,
but they had some functional
yeah.
access issues, and they were able
Mm,
to get that extra time.
amazing.
And I've had the opportunity to speak with some celebrities in the Malibu, Tuna Canyon area who
Mm,
also utilize Watch Duty.
yeah.
And my favorite one is there's a neighborhood, and I'm not intimately familiar with the area, so I'm not even going to try to quote it, but the fire department was able to save many houses because a celebrity had invested a pool drafting system, which allows fire engines to connect to their swimming pool and take
Ah,
all the water out of it. And so
ah,
they learned about the fire from the Watch Duty app. Not terribly close yet, but engines were beginning to assemble about 3/4 of a
yeah.
mile away from their house. They drove down to the fire engines and said, "Hey, we've been following this on Watch Duty." The firefighters all had it, which is exciting.
Ah,
But they said, "Hey, we have a draft system built on our pool. Here's where our house is." And so all of those engines were cycling through and refilling the engines
ah,
out of their pool, and they were able to save many houses because of that.
that's so cool. That's a celeb story I can get behind. I love it. Hey, look, thank you. I could talk to you all day. You've been beyond amazing. I appreciate your time on short notice as well, and appreciate you and appreciate what you do.
Yeah, no, thank you very much again for the coverage, and happy to talk anytime. So again, thank you.